our country is emerging from a historic moment of pain, suffering, and loss. Closer to home, we have seen firsthand the impact the pandemic has had on our neighborhoods and the things we hold dear. We as a community look to a more hopeful future in the arrival of spring. Spring has traditionally been the symbol of love, joy, spirituality, youth, and new beginnings. Our resolve to move forward together in unity, to celebrate our perseverance, creativity, and innovative spirit is what drives us forward. Tonight, we celebrate our journey and our shared vision for a brighter future, for ourselves and for the next generation of doers, dreamers, and creatives in Cambridge. Welcome to the Cambridge Community Foundation's 2021 Spring Gathering.
Welcome. I'm Rick Harriman, Board Chair. I sure miss being with you in person. I love the energy when we were packed together at the Charles Hotel 2 years ago, meeting face-to-face, clinking glasses. We are physically disconnected this evening, but mutual caring for our community keeps us connected in spirit. To set the stage for tonight, let me share a story. It may help you appreciate the work of your community foundation. Joining our staff and board, each of us read dozens of grant applications pouring in from individuals across the city. So many stories of people struggling. One stood out. An out-of-work dad living in Ringe Towers with a large family applied for help. Clearly, this family was struggling even before the pandemic. He ended his application by writing, "While we are in need, if there's someone else who needs this money more, please give them the grant." He then added a prayer for all of us. That was special. Someone desperately needing help and still having such a generous spirit. There are 1,000 stories in these applications. Within weeks of this emerging crisis, Geeta and her talented team had led a significant change in the direction of the foundation. We ended a century-old practice of making grants solely to nonprofits. We began to give cash grants directly to individuals. They needed help. They needed it directly. They needed it then, as did this family. Grants for food, rent, hand sanitizer, whatever people needed to reclaim their lives. Now, this meant acquiring millions of additional dollars. The entire community galvanized around this mission. Donations poured in from $5 to $500,000. Emblematic of these times, some people donated their stimulus check. Now, a year ago, we were planning a very different kind of celebration. Instead of talking about a pandemic, we were talking about how to honor 20 of our city's most notable cultural visionaries. To recognize them, we plan to launch for the future a new cultural capital fund to support those that inspire, provoke, and help us see the world with new eyes. Again, the times demanded we pivot, providing emergency funds to artists who needed it right then through our Artist Relief Fund. We are honored to have many of these visionaries with us tonight. Please join me as we celebrate them. And as we do so, we celebrate you, our friends, our donors, and our partners. I want to warmly thank our generous event sponsors. And let me add a special note of thanks to our Keepers of Cambridge sponsors whose gifts have sustained us over these 2 years. Together, we are emerging from this most difficult time, more committed than ever to our collective well-being. Thank you.
Artists are the heart of a community, the fabric of a cultural ecosystem, the innovators among us. Their work embodies the diversity and values of the place they inhabit and the world as they see or imagine it. They create spaces for communities to come together, engage in dialogue, inspire the next generation, and change for the better. Our Cambridge Cultural Visionaries are artists of national distinction, leaders in our community and unique individuals whose talents and contributions we are honored to celebrate. A group of artists, educators, and innovators, they have enhanced the cultural richness of Cambridge and beyond for over half a century.
There was so many places that made up a very diverse, eclectic group of people who were in Cambridge. Dancers, they always go into the least likely place and they develop it, and then all of a sudden the developers come.
I would like to talk about my brother, Roy Allen. Take me around to the various openings of art galleries and introduce me to people.
The color, the people, the diversity of people, and the attention paid to the creative arts, which was so much a part of my life in Cambridge.
What I want my town of Cambridge to do, I want it to have affordable housing, I want it to have good schools. Find the librarians in the town of Cambridge. Find the elementary school teachers and the middle school teachers who are doing a great job with poetry and art, and help them.
There's at least two things we are as people, right? There's our profession and we're citizens. Now, sometimes they intersect and sometimes they don't. And so you hope to get projects that will bring the two together.
I've been in the area for a little while, and I'm just loving what I'm seeing. The artists that we just saw, what incredible visionaries they are. We need visionaries like that, especially now. I mean, I really believe that if the arts are infused in every single aspect of society, we can help fix so many problems. I was joking with a friend the other day and said that let's get some artists on the COVID vaccine rollout. I'm sure we can come up with creative ways of getting the vaccine to everyone that needs it. What we're going to be doing is innovating even more, because during crisis, you're forced to be creative, and there's no one that's better at being creative than artists. And coming together in unique ways to share. I remember this summer going to the Starlight to see performances, which was fantastic, to get out of my home and to go into a safe space to see art right here in Cambridge. So continue to support your artists and support CCF, and we will come out of this way ahead than we started.
I think being mayor is all about public service, and being in office for me is all about public service and social justice. And I try to bring my background as a legal aid attorney, where I've talked to constituents and helped problem solve, to my lens as mayor. And being able to help with problems on a policy level is an amazing thing that I get to do along with my colleagues. And using this position, especially during this really, really hard time for everyone. Working with CCF, we knew that those needs being met with funds was just key in the beginning of the pandemic. And so the city launched the Mayor Disaster Relief Fund, and I had many individuals reach out when they were able to get some funding, just saying this rent money, really helped our family. Just a lot of the stories that were coming of, people needed lifelines, right? People needed some support during this really, really challenging time. They still need support, especially in the beginning. Being able to do that was so important. And so when I think about a strong pillar within the community, I think automatically of Cambridge Community Foundation. And it's where I really do turn to navigate difficult times, and especially in the pandemic. And then any matters that come up where we think, we need some help, I can always call the Cambridge Community Foundation. So I think we have to continue to work together as a community to address some of our most, challenging issues that existed before the pandemic. We knew that before the pandemic that our kids, our families, some families didn't have internet. And then we quickly had to shift and come up with solutions. And we realized these were solutions that we should have had to begin with. So, I think there's a real power to when we work together, we can achieve so much. So it's really important to take the lessons that we've learned the last 12 months during this pandemic and continue applying them as we move forward. And a key part of that is partnership with the Cambridge Community Foundation, with our amazing nonprofits, our businesses. I think Cambridge, there's no place like Cambridge. And I think that is clear in the work that we've been able to do as a city the last 12 months and who we've been able to help. So I want to keep doing that. And it's really, truly an honor to see our city's resilience and the community who lives here, who cares so much and gives back 100% to those who need help.
For almost 30 years, we've opened our big red doors onto the street, welcoming in all kinds of dances from all corners of the world. These dances are danced by people from all corners of the world. Some say we're like a United Nations of dance. Cambridge has always meant, for me, this space where I could be myself, to lean into who I am, to lean into growth and questioning, being curious. When the pandemic hit, of course, we reeled like everybody else. We were very proud that within 6 days we got programming online, because our mission is about keeping dance present. We felt it was important to get online right away and bring some normalcy of movement, guided movement to the public. And we did so. I'd say the most challenging moments were not the things that we did, but it was the recurrence of change, the reoccurrence of invention. Every 4 to 6 weeks, we were reinventing ourselves as a television studio to get classes online, to be both online and live in the classroom. One thing I believe I've learned now is that how to curate the changes, since they happen so quickly, and know when to hold on to the most important thing of 4 or 5 options that might appear. One of those options that I've held dearly onto for the last few months as we head into a year of this is the offer of free space from Biomed Realty. I feel that the constriction of the time has opened up this amazing way of seeing that space as complementary to what we do in our studios on Mass Ave. So we're not recreating and doing the same thing over there. We're able to offer research and a creativity lab that's akin to the sciences that surround us over there. I can never commit to the idea that there's a silver lining to this pandemic, because that would not take into account all the suffering and the loss that many, many people have suffered. And I realize my own privilege as a white man inside that statement. But I will own that if it's not a silver lining that we have discovered, we have discovered silver threads among this burlap sack of a pandemic.
When COVID first hit, everything closed down. And those first weeks, every single time I walked out the door, there were people standing there because this is where they came for help. And one day I came outside and there was an older woman standing there at the door, looking at the door. And I said, excuse me. And she wasn't responding. So I remember I tapped her on the shoulder, and I remember I felt like, can I touch somebody? It's dangerous. And she turned around and she was deaf. And we weren't wearing masks yet at that point, I don't believe, but she could read my lips. And so she was looking for food. And I just remember thinking, when this happened, she didn't know what to do. She didn't know what to do. And I was able to take down her address and went down to the senior center where we were packing bags and boxes for families, and grabbed bags of food and brought them to her house along with written information that she would be receiving these weekly. So we got her onto the list. But I just remember how real that made it for me of all the folks out there that, the city has been incredible at doing outreach, but it took a while to find the people who really need the help, because so often they're isolated, or they don't speak English, or they're deaf, or they have some other disability. And our ability to find those people through walking outside, through reaching out to the other food pantries, to the senior center, to the city setting up and promoting a hotline, it was a wonderful way to identify folks who need help. We had unbelievable outpouring of support from the community during that time and through the past year. So we've had hundreds of volunteers supporting us. We've had organizations like like the City of Cambridge and the Senior Center giving us space, the Cambridge Community Foundation, Cambridge Savings Bank, so many have stepped up financially to help support the work that we're doing. In 2012, when I joined, we were rescuing about 600,000 pounds of food and distributing maybe 800,000 pounds. In March through June of 2019, we distributed 0.7 million pounds of food. In March through June of 2020, we distributed 1.7 million pounds of food. So we have significantly grown our operations, and I feel like we are meeting less of the overall need than we were prior to the pandemic. CCF has been a tremendous resource to not only Food for Free, but the nonprofit community. It is a community like I've never known, and I think that's in part why Food for Free has been so successful. Even with the individuals, when I looked at the hundreds of volunteers that poured out in the early days, so many of them were from Cambridge. Obviously, we're operating in Cambridge, but I'm truly amazed by a city of 120,000 plus people, how small it is in so many ways, and how much business, nonprofit, government come together to try to support their community and the people within it. And I'm really grateful to be here and to be a part of this community.
When this thing is over, when we are finally liberated and can emerge from our homes, Cambridge, we will never again take your touch for granted. Never again treat your after-rain sunlight lightly. No, we will close our eyes, inhale, breathe you in, and let it amber across our unmasked faces. Ah, unmasked faces. We will look for other unmasked faces. No, maybe just two. Two laughing together as they move through you. And we will fall in love with their laughter and start laughing like those people who laugh because other people are laughing. In fact, we will laugh so loudly that they'll look at us and ask, "Why are you laughing?" And we'll look at each other and say, "I don't know, 'cause you are." And then we'll all bust out laughing. When this thing is over, and Cambridge, you can be you again, we will meet you at the Charles and paint you, even though most of us cannot paint. But lately, we find ourselves driven by a need to commit you to canvas, capture your colors at different times of day, like Monet at Rouen. We will watch dancers bend, carve, and spell your spaces with the alphabet of their bodies. Dig on musicians, musicking blossoms in our minds. And we will hear you singing again, Cambridge, and fall into the us-shaped cracks of your voice, lilting in a language that only the newly broken parts of us can decipher. When this thing is over, Cambridge, and you can be you again, we will let the foreign tongues you speak every day enter us like the scent of masala, challah, falafel, reminding us of countries that we must live long enough to visit. Grin at men holding each other's hands on street corners and women kissing as if today were their last. We will throw our arms around the willing and welcoming circumference of you, walk into places we were fearing to enter a year before, wade through the haze of aftershave and perfume, eavesdrop on your earlobe close conversations, pen poems about lipstick on wine bottles, and order 2 drinks, one for ourselves and one to be left in front of us untouched as a reminder of those you've lost. So when this thing is over, Cambridge. Look for us. We'll be the ones slightly sadder, a bit more weepy-eyed, but smiling. The ones who now know that in you, Cambridge, even the mundane is meaningful. The ones for whom your absence has somehow made you, for us, more present. Thank you.
My Brother's Keeper Cambridge, our mission is to eradicate the chronic social, mental, economical, and educational barriers for young people. What we're building is, we're bringing it back to our traditional upbringing, where we have a strong sense of community, where young people understand that they are part of that community, right? So when we look at the work that we do, we look at the educational system. We look at the opportunity gap. It's not just an achievement gap. There are gaps at every turn, specifically for Black and brown children, whether that's housing and being underhoused, wondering if you can live in your own city when you grow up, knowing how expensive it is to live there. I'm one of those kids. So when you say I chose to live here, yes, I did choose to stay here and live here, buy real estate here. But many of our young folks are not learning about how to do that, right? My dream for Cambridge is that it continues to strive for greatness. But at the same time, it brings everybody with it. And so in my experience, many of my friends that I grew up with, who were born here, raised here, the families, the legacies, they've all gone. If you look like me, they're all gone. And in my heart of hearts, in collaboration with everyone else who grew up in the city, in my time anyway, we helped to create the culture that has attracted people from all over the world. I think we need to be very clear that it's not just Harvard and MIT that bring people to Cambridge. It is really the culture that brings people to Cambridge. And now we see all of this innovation around us, which is bringing us to this conversation now. Well, what happens when innovation only helps a certain few? My hope for Cambridge is that we recognize and we're honest with ourselves about how innovation impacts and or helps a select few, but not all. And if we're gonna live up to our promise, we have to do all we can to make sure that as we strive for excellence and as we grow, everyone is striving for excellence and everyone can grow with it.
One of the interesting things about Central Square is you've got in the title the word square, but no actual square. And the city owns all these parking lots, large public spaces, where there's about space for 90 cars. And I think the why that we had for Starlight was we can do so much better for the denizens and residents of Central Square on that space.
Starlight really equaled a lot of hope at a time when the community needed it. We had all been shuttered in our homes, our businesses had been shut down. It didn't feel safe to be inside or to be even this close to loved ones. So Starlight gave us an opportunity to take everything that happens inside, all of this good that happens inside, and pour it into this place outside that's truly a community benefit, where the community came together in a safe, shared experience
I think this is like the work that the three of us are called to do. I think we all have really strong connections to this city and to this neighborhood. And we all have pretty diverse backgrounds outside of what this project is that brought us together. Matthew and I grew up in Central Square. We went to the same elementary school as Mike's children. I think after the marathon, someone said, there are always people who help, but look for the people who help. And that's some people's personality. And I think that's what kind of drove this group together, is that we were interested in what could we do to help people. And that's what motivated us. It was an extremely hard year. And I think foundations like Cambridge Community Foundation have helped so many people by giving us the opportunity to explore these ideas. And then you create this kind of ecosystem of help and mutual aid.
All of the work at this site has been done with intent. And when you think of the vendors who were chosen to participate, largely Cantabrigians, largely female, largely entrepreneurs of color, as we've seen closures up and down the Mass Ave corridor, we get to celebrate the fact that we helped open 12 new businesses in Central Square. And I think that's really important, not just talking about the work, but really doing the work. And I think Opportunity is an example of how you lead by action and not by words.
Starlight was a hopeful activity, and there was just a lot of hope in the team. And so I actually don't feel like I'm emerging from an unhopeful place into a hopeful one. How people responded to this crisis was incredible and inspiring. And to hear folks talk about how to carry it forward and amplify it and make it bigger and gracefully emerge from this moment, I think is really, really exciting.
When I think of home, I think of a place where there's love overflowing. I wish I was home, I wish I was back there with the things I've been knowing. Wind that makes the tall trees bend into leaning. Suddenly the raindrops that fall have a meaning, sprinkling the sea. Makes it all so clean. Maybe there's a chance for me to go back now that I have some direction. It sure would be nice to be back at home where there's love and affection. And just maybe I can convince time to slow up, giving me enough time in my life to grow up. Time be my friend. Let's start again. Suddenly the world has gone and changed its face, but I know where I'm going. I have had my mind spun around in space, and yet I've watched it growing. Oh, if you're listening, God, please don't make it hard to try and believe in the things that we see. Tell us, should we try and stay, or should we run away? Or would it be better just to let things be? Living here in this brand new world might be a fantasy, but it's taught me to love. So it's real, it's so real to me, and I've learned that we must look inside. Oh. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Corinne ESPINOZA. I'm with the Cambridge Economic Opportunity Committee, and I'm also the founder of Good Bank, which was one of the Social Innovation Award winners for the Cambridge Community Foundation's first ever Social Innovation Awards in 2019. I founded Good Bank in 2013, and this was based off a really simple observation that people without cash needed access to credit for things that they needed. For people who have enough money, it can be hard to understand how small amounts of cash can be helpful. But for example, you might need to pay a small fee. It might be $10. And if you don't have the $10 on you, you might need to end up withdrawing money that you don't have. You get hit with a big bank surcharge, a $35 fee if you're overdrafting your account. So I'd had that personal experience lots of times. And I'd also had a few people step in to help intervene in times when I needed just a little bit of money, and they made me that loan interest free. So that was my idea for Good Bank, to just make tiny loans interest free. Good Bank is a project that started and stopped. It's different now. So in the part of Good Bank where we were making loans, I was able to make over 331 tiny loans to people. Most people paid them back right away. The average time it took someone to pay the loan back was a week. But we had some people who repaid as quickly as the same day. So they'd borrow money at 6 p.m. and then pay me back before 8 p.m. before the bank closed. So it was a wide variety, but we actually saw very high repayment rates. So that was one of the reasons I was excited to do Good Bank, to show proof of concept that if you just trust people, they do come through for you. So Cambridge is a particularly difficult place for people who don't have enough, because the inequalities here are so high. So many people who live in Cambridge feel like Cambridge is a utopia, that the schools are amazing, that the public schools help everyone, that we've got everything we need here. But the truth is that we have very high poverty in Cambridge. I have been very grateful to be able to be aware of both of those worlds, so that I can try to carry the needs of one world into a place where we might be able to address those needs. I'm inspired to keep working in Cambridge because I think we have a long way to go. We have a lot of resources here, and so it's a matter of just bridging gaps where we've got a great resource, but maybe it's not accessible to everyone. Or we've got a great program that's almost right, but it's missing a piece that makes it really useful for people. I feel like during the pandemic, more people became aware of our vulnerabilities as human, and more people became aware of systemic racism. And so I'm hopeful that people will continue in those fights so that we can make things better for everyone.
Hi, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Gail Roberts. First, I want to give a huge shout out to the leadership of this great organization. I've been on the board for over 2 years, and the changes that I've seen in that short time have been astounding. The work that CCF does with a staff of 9 is remarkable. It's truly an A-team. Gita, Michal, Lauren, Atside, Elaine, Gwyn, Liz, Jenny, and Minji. We also have a remarkable board. By the way, this is a working board. Our committees roll up their sleeves and get work done. And there's only one explanation. They love Cambridge. And all of you, our neighbors, supporters, nonprofits, thank you. You helped us raise over $4 million that changed the lives of thousands of people. It would not have happened without you. I'm so proud to be part of this organization, and never more than last year. Every time I turned around, everywhere I went, this past year I saw the Cambridge Community Foundation launching new initiatives, forming partnerships, helping people. This is a great organization. Let me say that again. It's not just a great organization, it's your organization. I'm so happy that you're showing your support by showing up tonight. I would never dream of asking you for money. I might, though. But if you love this city as I do, there's not a better organization to support. If you do choose to give, you can hit the donate button on your screens tonight. Thank you. Thank you for all your support, for being with us tonight, and enjoy the rest of the evening.
Good evening. I'm happy that you can be with us tonight. And although we can't throw a big party for our 20 cultural visionaries, I want to thank them for their great gifts to all of us. Their stories, poems, music, painting, films, and so much more. We are deeply saddened that Elsa Dorfman and Tunny Lee, two amazing talents, both passed away before we could honor them. On our website, you will find tributes to them and each of these remarkable individuals. Rick opened this evening with a story about one of our COVID emergency grant applicants that moved him deeply. How could we not be moved by what we saw last year? We all know about the stress and strains on our city, the data on poverty, the inequities in education, the astronomical housing costs, and the extreme bell curve of our income earners. But the suddenness of COVID created a trauma that was immediate, strong, and heartbreaking. We needed to act, and act then. This wasn't a time for extensive processes and bureaucratic hurdles. We had to rely on some basic tenets of humanity: empathy and trust for those hurting, accountability and speed for ourselves. As Rick mentioned earlier, we did something we'd never done before: make grants directly to individuals. To make the shift, we had to take risks. We took organizational risks. We retooled our systems and staffing so we could get money out to people quickly. Instead of allocating 2 rounds of grants to 150 organizations, we distributed 1,700 grants over the past 11 months. In the middle of a pandemic, we also resolved to look deeply at what we were doing to become a positive force for racial justice. At times, I worried about our reputation if we came up short or spread ourselves too thin, but I also knew we could not allow ourselves to fail. Too much was at stake. So we led, we partnered, we connected. With relief funds and donors who desperately wanted to help, with the state who wanted to address basic needs, with the city when they wanted to help our struggling arts organizations, and with our nonprofits, all dealing with incredible challenges, no operating revenue, no funds to pay staff, and the ever-growing need to help those in crisis. Ultimately, through the incredible generosity of our donors, local and state leaders, and many of you with us tonight, we were able to consistently contribute where the need was greatest. If there was a silver lining to this crisis, I believe we emerged as a foundation that we have always aspired to be: a true resource, an authentic partner, a civic leader. As we look to the future and the vulnerabilities in our community, we will dig deeper into issues of equity and racial justice. Our upcoming report, Equity in Innovation Cities, the Case of Cambridge, gets to the heart of these structural issues. In the weeks to come, we will be sharing more about this work with you. No community wants to relive the pain we felt the past year, and I'm grateful that our city has the will, the resources, and the wherewithal to do what needs to be done. And that's why we're here tonight. We don't just want to emerge from this crisis. We want to emerge as a stronger community, able to take on any challenge that comes our way, and we will, working together. Thank you to tonight's generous sponsors, my excellent staff, our hardworking board and dedicated professional advisors council, our inspirational cultural and civic visionaries, our wonderful performers, and of course, all of you. We close tonight with a special performance by ALISA AMADOR singing Together.
Hello everyone, my name is ALISA AMADOR. And I hope that you've enjoyed this evening of incredible words, music, art, and reasons to keep the hope alive in Cambridge and beyond. I'm so honored to be closing the night tonight with a song that pays tribute to the power of community in the face of all odds. This song is called Together, and the song was born out of this feeling of deep gratitude for my community and for the way that, you know, the power of walking arm in arm with a friend, and how no matter how heavy the day has been, no matter how hard your life may be at that moment, your heart is lighter and everything feels more possible. So that same feeling is how I feel being a part of the community of CCF, Cambridge Community Foundation. It's pretty revolutionary to feel like people believe in you and people are there for you and are continuing to fight to find the way to come together. So this song says that even if the world is always breaking, we are going to be here to put it back together. And there's a part for you in it. I'll give you a look, and you can join me from home and imagine all of us singing it together wherever we are, because we really are still together. Anyway, cheesiness aside, thank you for being here. I celebrate you. Here's Together. All of the people of all of the earth, each with a piece of all this hurt. Some take it in, some give it away, among other things that I can't explain. Childlike wonders that wither and flicker and fade. But when we're together, opening heart, it doesn't matter that all falls apart. When we're together, there lies the art. We'll make it better when it falls apart. Will it always fall apart? All of the people of all of the earth, each with a reason, a heart, and a worth. Some devastate when you're in their way and dig themselves deeper in hopes that you stay. Childlike blunders that cover up feeling afraid. But when we're together, wandering soul, we'll build a ladder and climb out of that hole. When we're together, our only goal is to make it better when it all unfolds. For it always does unfold. You can sing with me. Imagine everyone singing with you right now. Together, 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 opening heart.
together, 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 together. Thank you so much, Cambridge Community Foundation. Thank you, all of you, for singing with me. I can feel it in my mind, and I know that you're there because I feel your support every day. So thank you for what you do, and have a good night.